The
Not
two
bad, not
smartest
bad.
baseball people I have a good relationship with are you and Whitey Herzog. And it's interesting, your critique of Ali Marmol was the exact same. We talked to Whitey on the television side last week. And now neither of you guys
I didn't see it.
are destroying him or anything, but you both said the exact same thing when I asked for like analysis. Boy, he takes out his starting pitchers too early. Let him go. He's not going to get hurt. It's like verbatim of what you said last week is what Whitey said this week.
Well, to me, that's a compliment because anytime you can say the same thing as Whitey Herzog, you're probably going to be right, which is not very often for me.
Is he the smartest baseball guy? I mean, you were around Leland for all those years.
Yes.
You're around La Russa for a cup of coffee, other good managers. But is he the smartest you've ever been around?
It's really hard to say which guy had better knowledge of the game. I think Leland was a little more relational than Whitey.
Yeah.
But as far as baseball knowledge, understanding the personalities of his players, without really even talking to them. See, here's the one thing that Jim Leland did, which I really respected. During batting practice, he would walk the outfield, and he would talk to his. He made sure he talked to his starting players every day. Like let's say I was working on my outfield play, he wouldn't interfere with me. I would work 15 minutes or whatever, taking fly balls up against the wall, working on ground balls, working on my footwork, working on my throwing technique. And when I was done, he'd come over, and he would like pump you. Hey, good work, you're doing. He would pump you up as far as you're practicing well. And if I was slumping, he would say something positive like. And he'd make fun of you. Go, man, you really stink. Could you turn around tonight, please? We really need you. And Whitey was not the same. Whitey basically stuck around the batting cage. Whitey obviously liked the media. He communicated very well to his players through the media. And Jim Leland was more a one-on-one guy. But as far as baseball knowledge, as far as managing the game, it's a coin toss, Frank. They were both very, very intelligent.
See, that's interesting, your thoughts on Leland being relational and sounding like Leo Biscaglia. The perception would not be that because we don't know, and the only thing we see of Leland was when he undressed Barry Bonds in front of the cameras.
Right.
But he was like that. I mean, he wasn't warm and fuzzy, but just...
I saw Jim Leland cry. I played for him for 8 years, and I saw him cry half a dozen times to 10 times because he was actually a guy who was very emotional but kept it behind closed doors. And Whitey, I don't think had the same – I'm sure obviously Whitey has emotions, everybody does, but he kind of hit his.
Yeah. Now, do you think Leland got that walk around the outfield checking on everybody from La Russa, who was famous for – he would do that all the time.
He would do that, and obviously Jim – probably got I don't know if he got it from La Russa, but he coached in Chicago. He was the third base coach for Tony La Russa, and I'm sure he saw the effects of how positive that was for him to do that on a daily basis. I never talked to Jim about it, where he got that, but I'm sure he watched Tony do it and saw it was a positive effect on his players.
The amazing thing about Whitey is he's 91 and he watches every game, and he's so right on with every bit of his analysis, like you are with the Cardinals. In fact, at the end I said, well, do you think they're still in this thing? He goes, with this pitching staff, do you anticipate a long run?
No.
I mean, there's
no chance that they can have a long run. And, the fact that they keep throwing Wainwright out there, it's...
And he reports he's feeling better.
Well, I'm sure he probably does feel better. He hasn't thrown a baseball in a while. If I don't work out for a couple of days, I feel better too.
Yeah.
Things don't hurt as well. And
all right.
I don't know if we want to really talk about the Wainwright thing. I think we worn that one out. I think it's so obvious that everybody knows what he needs to do.
Okay, so you're a car guy, and I equate
Yes, I am.
every performance by Jack Flaherty is a sports car on a showroom or a model on a runway. He's not going to be
Wait a
with
minute, a female model.
Female model,
Okay.
yes. And what you're doing is you're showcasing him. And every start, he's pretty good, like he was yesterday, and it's 3 good ones in a row. Value goes up.
He was good yesterday against a really, really bad team.
Yeah, but it's 3 pretty good starts
It's
in a
still really, yes.
Yeah.
And it's pretty simplistic. He throws his fastball now more than he has in the beginning of the year.
Something
He's not walking people.
Yeah.
And with his stuff, he shouldn't be walking people. No, a guy like Matz, I can understand if Matz goes out there and picks and picks and picks, even though he does throw 94, 95, and he's turning around because he's throwing his fastball more.
He's pitching better, yeah.
Well, yeah, because I can tell you, Frank, when you go to the plate and you know a pitcher's afraid to throw his fastball in the strike zone, it just makes it easier to hit. It's not complicated.
Okay. Do you remember that pitcher for the Reds, Tyler Mahle, M-A-H-L-E? I bring this up because last year the Reds made this trade. Tyler Mahle is 33-41, Andy, lifetime with a 4.30 ERA, and he's 28. Jack Flaherty is 27, younger, 41-30, better, 3.55 earned run average, much better.
Right.
They got in return this Spencer Steer fella who's a monster. He's already got 51 RBIs. And then they got this Christian and Carcion Strand, who they just brought up, the Reds yesterday, I think. And he's got 20 home runs already in AAA and regarded as a really good prospect. My point is, Flaherty is a better prospect than Mahle, and the Reds got a whole lot in return, and one of the reasons why they're in much better shape than the Cardinals. So I would think you
two
could
different
get some.
two different equations, though. Two different equations. They went out and got players.
Yeah. What do you
But
see?
I'm saying we don't need players. We need pitching. And the fact that Flaherty's pitching the way he is, if you trade him, are you going to get anything better in return? It's not like you need an everyday player. Maybe in the outfield, but even in the outfield, I still
You could probably live with Walker, Nootbaar,
and Edman in center. You still aren't. You still don't like this Edman guy in center field. I love Edman in center field.
I think he's an ideal trade commodity or trade piece.
You do.
I would keep Donovan ahead of Edman. Yes or no?
Yes.
And I would keep Gorman obviously ahead of Edman.
Yes.
So I mean, you got to trade some people, and I don't know if Dylan Carlson's going to yield you much at this stage.
At this point, he's going to get you, maybe a bag of fungos. That's about it.
Yeah,
Last year, like we talked about this last year, when the president of the Cardinals went to him and said, "We're not trading you," and I you remember that, and I said that's the biggest mistake they could ever make, announcing that you're not going to trade him. Now, was that because they wanted to tell everybody in Major League Baseball this guy's better? We think he's really good, and maybe they were trying to get value in return. But at this point, this is water under the bridge. It's too late.
Yeah. I mean, it's tough. Last year I could understand a little bit of hesitancy to trade him because he was coming off a marvelous first year where he was really young and very productive, drew walks. And then last year, you're about midway through. Oh, you really want to kick him to the curb now?
It's not kicking him to the curb, Frank.
But just moving on.
It's not a personal thing. Is he an everyday center fielder? And at least my evaluation last year was he is not.
Wait a minute, because he doesn't hit enough or because he doesn't play the position well enough?
I don't think he plays center field well enough, number one. Number two, what's the difference between Tommy Edman and him? What are some of the differences?
I think Tommy Edman is just more competitive and takes better at-bats and fights. And
who cares about – I don't care about all that. What I'm saying is when Tommy Edman starts the game, who has a chance of scoring more runs?
No question.
Tommy Edman.
Yeah.
Because he's a threat to steal. First of all, Carlson
runs better. Yeah.
He can't. Do you want your center field not have the ability? He's got to either have the ability to hit the ball at the ballpark or steal bases, one or the other. Your typical prototype center fielder either does both of them average-wise or excels with one or the other. And he doesn't excel with either one of them.
Yeah.
So Tommy Edman excels defensively, and he excels as far as being a threat to score as soon as he gets to first base.
Yeah.
Now, if Tommy Edman could figure out a way of drawing more walks, terrific. And I think the best way to do that is for him to hit more right-handed or hit right-handed all the time.
But
I'm not going to get off this one. I've been preaching this one for too long.
Oh no, we're with you on that.
Yeah.
But with that said, though, he's on the block. There's only 4 untradables. Donovan, Walker, Goldschmidt, Arenado. Would you agree?
And I disagree. 3 out of 4, yes.
Who would
I
you
still think Goldschmidt's tradable. I really do.
Well, you know what Whitey said last night? He goes, if you could get a number one starter who wins 20 games, yeah. And I would be in favor of that.
You got to get a stud. I'm not saying he's unequivocally he's untradeable. No, he's tradable if you can get what you need. Not even necessarily next year, but the 2025 season. I mean, you got to have a guy that is projected that he can get 15 to 20 wins next year and the following year.
Yeah,
he's got to be young enough. Is my point.
So in terms of their farm,
and he's 36.
He will be 36. Yeah.
Yes, and he's got the best body, as you have announced many times, and that really scares me that you keep talking about his body.
I have not mentioned it one time.
One time every Monday you talk about how good his body
about
is.
If we want to talk about
Joe,
bodies.
am I right about this one? Every Monday.
Joe, have I mentioned his body more than once?
Yeah, probably more than once. But I don't know about every show, but definitely more than once.
Yeah, I'm exaggerating.
Definitely. I'm bringing back Brian Hoffman. All right. And by the way, in terms of bodies, I am amazed. Because I got to tell you something. I'm in the freaking clubhouse for 2 hours a day for the last 30 years. I don't want to be in there. I don't want to see naked men.
Why not?
Honestly, I'm tired of it. I don't.
Oh, okay. You're tired of it.
I would rather be in the U.S. Open women's locker room or something like that.
Sure, I get it.
But anyway, I'm amazed at how
worse bodies.
I'm amazed that you're right. Lately, I'm amazed at how bad some of these professional athletes' bodies are. You have one thing to do if you're a professional athlete.
What's that?
Be in great shape. Okay? I don't know why there's so many guys not in great shape. There's more bad bodies than good bodies.
Well,
I wouldn't say that, but there's a lot of bad bodies.
Here's the thing, Frank. They're not out there to be chiseled, number one, except O'Neal.
But the more chiseled you are, the better chance you have of success, correct? Bigger, stronger, faster.
Not necessarily. I think there's the one sport, golf is another one. So there's two sports where you can have a bad body, at least visually, and perform at a high level.
Well, there have been
golf is one.
There have been examples of that,
and baseball is another. We had a catcher here for 20 years. Did he have a good body?
No, but that's the one position you.
First base. You can have fat pitchers.
There have been some examples, but in general, you have more success if you're built like Rory McIlroy instead of Colin Montgomery. You have a better chance for success. Would you agree?
Yes, but genetically, you're talking about two different people, too.
That's true, too.
I mean, genetically,
absolutely.
Some guys aren't ever going to have a body that's, going to end up on a men's magazine. Goldschmidt could.
Yeah.
He could, but Molina's not going to be taking pictures about, with his shirt off.
Well, Albert once made a men's fitness thing, and I remember some of the guys give him a hard time because it was like airbrushed. There's no way that's
airbrushed
or whatever you do to make a guy look a little more cut, and they definitely doctored the photo somehow because that did not look like the Albert body that I knew. So.
That scares me too.
Boy, I have made some incriminating statements here.
Yes, you have.
Can I tell you one quick story off the record?
Absolutely.
Okay, I had like this gym bag I bring with me to like the MAC or to Norwood, okay? And so I don't know how, but there is a brush, a full brush in there with a women's hair, when they put their hair in a knot, like a bow, those little rubber things.
Sure.
Yeah. So
Crunchy.
Monique,
they put it in a ponytail.
So I had this thing last night. I bring it home, and she goes into this bag, and she sees this brush, which she doesn't recognize, and then a woman's pony. She goes, "What the hell is this in your bag?"
Your wife found it?
Yeah, and I said, "I have no idea." She goes, "Oh, yeah, it just got into your bag." And I have really no idea. I had no response, and she's asking me all morning long.
And you're starting to sweat.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know where the brush came from.
You don't.
Yeah, and it's got the women's bow. I mean, if it was
that's
why women lie.
Let me ask you. Did it have long blonde hair on the brush?
That's what she's such a little conniver. She says, I'm pulling some hair off here, and I'm doing a test and finding out who this is. I have no idea where this brush comes. Maybe it was something from Channel 5. I got it out of I don't know. But.
Frank, of all the guys I know, okay, you might look at the menu, but you ain't ordering.
No. I'm afraid of her, and I wouldn't do it anyway. So, all right. So let's get back to yesterday. A pretty good day at the office. They've had 30 hits in their last 2 games. They are hitting right now. Anything jumping out at you offensively?
Not surprising. We all knew that this team had potential to do what they've done. the issue is against two, though.
Oh, the Gorman thing I wanted to ask you about.
Yes.
He had 3 hits yesterday,
Yeah.
tape measure home run, and he kind of listened to you a little bit and went a little bit to left field, I think.
That's going to be that's where consistency comes in for him. And as soon as he starts using more of the field, these are the results he's going to see. And sometimes when you're a young hitter, it takes you time to convince yourself. Other people are convinced that this is the right approach. But for him, the more success he has, I think the more you're going to see him have that approach. Because the numbers aren't going to lie.
And you do put him on your untradable list.
I do.
Okay.
I certainly do. Because early in the year, I forgot what team it was, but you had talked to maybe a scout or somebody from the opposing team. And this is when he had that streak, I think it was in May, when he was really hitting.
Yeah.
And he, according to your sources, he was the number one guy that they feared at that time in the Cardinal lineup.
That's right, yeah.
And if he continues like he is, he's going to be a top 3 guy that you're going to be very, very concerned about because of what he can do potentially like he did yesterday.
And I know Lars Nootbaar is fine, but doesn't it say something about your club if he's batting third? How would you?
That was so.
He's been doing it a lot lately, too.
I don't get it.
What would you do? Would you do Goldschmidt 3, Arenado 4? I mean, Nootbaar draws his walks.
He does, but but Nootbaar doesn't. He's not a gap hitter and he's not a home run hitter. He's a walk guy, single guys, and he runs into one every now and then. He does. The one thing he does very well is he does hit well with men in scoring position. So maybe that's, maybe they went into the computer and that's what they spit out and said, that's where he needs to be. I think visually, when your third hitter doesn't have the potential hitting the ball at the ballpark, like Gorman can, it's not traditional. Let's just say that.
Brendan Donovan, 2 more hits yesterday. Listen to July: 378, 425 on base, and a 1,047 OPS. They're not just singles. There's doubles and triples and home runs.
Mm-hmm. And to get back to how we opened the show, he got bigger, he got stronger, and he has experience. And he has comfortable bats for himself because he knows that he can hit the ball down the left field line and the right field line. And that is a very, very comforting thing when you go to the plate, when you know you can be laid on a fastball, keep it out of the air, and potentially hit any ball, a line drive to the left side of the field for him.
Jordan Walker had an unbelievable catch, the best catch of his career.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like he's better off in right. Would you just say, you're my right fielder, we'll check in 5 years from now? Just you're playing every day at right field?
Yeah, there's growing pains, no question about it.
Or eventually does he move to first when Paul Goldschmidt gets old?
Or traded.
Yes. Yeah.
I haven't seen him. He played third base, right?
The whole time. He hadn't played outfield until the end of last year.
Okay. So it's not like he's going to be uncomfortable if he's on the dirt. I was, when I went from the outfield to third base, I broke out in hives when I got in the dirt. I mean, it was terrifying for me.
So it's easier to make he's already played.
My point. He has experience there, so he knows. He's had enough experience with rockets and softballs, chopper, whatever. He's had enough experience in the minor leagues that he's not going to be surprised. When you watched him early in the year, he was so surprised on balls. He had a really hard time distinguishing between jam shots, balls off the end of the bat. His routes were terrible, and they're getting better, and that just comes with experience.
All right. How would you handle the shortstop position after the trade deadline? Paul DeJong, by the way, is hitting. His average is over 240 now. And he's feeling well. But Mason Wynn is up to 765.
That's all you have to say.
11 home runs, hitting 273, 345 on base. Would you say? Would you trade DeJong at the break, at the deadline, and then have Wynn play every day for 2 months?
Well, yeah, they're not going to. At this point, they're not going to be in the race. The Pirates are eventually going to probably be in last place.
Yeah, we're only a game behind them.
Yeah. So, I just think that the rest of the year is you're trying to formulate your team for next year and the following year. I don't think this is the thing. At this point, the Cardinals have never been in this position, probably since Whitey, that they've done a total blow up, and this is going to be something new for them to do. It's a scary proposition to present to the fans, but I think the fans have enough knowledge in St. Louis to understand that sometimes you gotta totally tear the house down and rebuild it. This is sort of.
Well, can you do that here, or doesn't it have to be a retool instead of a rebuild if you're drawing?
What's wrong with rebuild?
Well, I mean, are you saying that you're going to be bad in 2023? You can have back-to-back horrible years.
You mean 2024?
2024.
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying you can still have a rebuild plan that makes you better next year, but potentially really good in 2025.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. They're in a division that even if they rebuild for next year, they're still, if they get enough pitching, they don't need a whole lot. They just need enough that they're going to be competitive next year. And if that means Goldschmidt's gone, let him go. Because I know Goldschmidt's he's the greatest pro. He's one of the greatest pros that the Cardinals have ever had.
He is.
On and off the field. He does everything right. He's an unbelievable guy. He's a great teammate. Everything you want in a major league player. But Frank, do we want a nice team, nice guys, or do we want to win?
Yeah. And I couldn't quite understand or agree with you 100% on your trade thoughts on the big three free agents. Okay, so let me give you mine real quick, and then you respond. We'll go one by one. Jordan Walker, you do everything between now and the deadline to try to get him signed. If he's not going to sign, I don't care if he amasses 10 saves the final 2 months. It's over. I'm going to get some value for him.
Hicks.
If he's not going to, Hicks.
Jordan Hicks.
Hicks.
Yeah.
So would you agree with that?
As far as signing him?
Yeah, then if you can't sign him, then you have to trade him.
Yes, 100%.
Okay.
100%. Go to him and say, listen, we believe in you.
And he hasn't made big money. Maybe you could entice him with guaranteed.
Absolutely.
Well, how much has Jordan Hicks made in his career? Joe, check that out.
His career or this year?
His career.
Whatever he's making this year, it's gonna triple next year or quadruple next year, whatever it's going to be.
Okay, and then with Jack, look, with a shortage of pitching we have, I wouldn't mind having Jack Flaherty back. But then again, you offer
how many years though?
Probably 3 at age 27.
Yeah, and with arm history.
Yeah.
If he had Jordan Hicks, right?
Jordan Hicks.
He's making $1.8 million.
Yeah.
So he's never made anything. Yeah. Oh, I mean, that's big for all of us.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay, so then with Flaherty, again, I do the same thing. Try to offer him a deal. If he says no, you have to move him. You can't have Jack Flaherty on your roster at the end of this season if he's not signed for next season, right?
Yes, I think that's correct too. So you got two guys that are really still at the point of this is a try. It's almost like a tryout. We're going to try to we're trying to figure out what we're going to do with you, and it's probably going to be based on what's going to happen until the trade deadline.
And why did you say last week, I think on the TV side, that you thought that Jack would really want to stay? Why wouldn't, if I'm Jack Flaherty, have 30 teams trying to get me as opposed to one and just wait 2 months and not sign anything now?
Why would I say that?
Yeah, bet on yourself, because you kind of thought that the lure of the Cardinals and what a great organization it is special.
Absolutely, Frank, that goes a long way. He's been in the league long enough. He's talked to other guys on the team. He's been to some of the greatest baseball towns. He's been to Boston. He's been to Yankee Stadium. He's been to all these places, and as a player, man, it doesn't get any better than this.
But he's
go ahead.
He's from L.A. The Dodgers have just huge issues with their starting pitching.
Mm-hmm.
I would think L.A. could entice the Cardinals. I don't know what their minor league pitching looks like, but
well, again, loyalty only goes so far if your wallet gets really big.
Yeah.
I mean, there's an old, one of my favorite sayings that our buddy Tom Holly says: "Everybody has a price." Right?
Yeah.
And if the price is so high that it's hard to reject, go for it. I mean, this is an individual sport played by. It's an individual profession, played in a team environment. But gosh darn it, at the end of the day, you got to take care of yourself, number one.
And then with Jordan Montgomery, same thing. We definitely need pitching. We love you. Let's sign you to a contract. And if he says no, he's gone for sure. Mm-hmm. And why would he sign? His agent is Boris.
Well, yeah, that's part of the equation that's going to be hard to overcome. Boris has a way of enticing his players to take the most money possible. And that's his job, and he's as good as there is. So, again, it's the environment. Does Montgomery think that the Cardinals are going to be a playoff team next year and the following year? He may stay for a little less money, or maybe a lot of less money.
And I doubt if that's happening.
If you doubt what?
I doubt if Jordan Montgomery is on the Cardinal baseball team on August 2nd.
You doubt that?
Yes.
Yeah. I think of all the guys that might leave, he's probably number one.
Yeah. I was texting with a Cardinal executive last night about just the most important people in their organization right now are the pro scouts, the ones that are scouring the 29 farm systems to find out who in AAA right now.
AA.
Yeah.
And here's another. You can take a flyer on guys in even A-ball.
You're right.
I mean, Dwight Gooden came from A-ball to the big leagues. He skipped AA, AAA, and went out in, 19 games his rookie year.
And if you're a team that wants to go for it, and Jordan Montgomery's like one of the best lefties in baseball, and Flaherty's pitching out of his mind, and Hicks is pitching great, you're going to give up. There's going to be some organization. We're going for it.
Right.
You know?
And Montgomery, the one thing Montgomery does, even when he was pitching poorly, except for a couple of starts, he got you to almost a sixth inning most of the time.
And I don't know if you heard the Chip Carey stat yesterday. He had a good one about Jack Flaherty. And I know he basically said if you take away those 3 starts, he gave up like 24 runs.
He had an ERA under 3?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, Skip Schumacher is in town tonight. And I don't know if anybody is doing a better job managing than this guy. He's 53-42 with a Marlins team that nobody was like in love with. He's probably the manager of the year.
Why not? Why not? You know, I mean, in that division, their payroll, rookie manager. But here's the thing. He really, I think the most glaring thing to me is how he surrounded himself with baseball people and people he trusted.
So like John Jay, John Mabry.
John Jay, yes.
Yeah.
Is huge. My son, AJ, played with John Jay in the minor leagues. And he always thought that John Jay was, just a really, really smart baseball guy. Yeah. Now, have you talked? I had never talked to John Jay.
Oh yeah, he's a nice guy.
Not really nice guy.
Yeah, and he could hit. And he's not for power, but he could hit and he drew walks.
And he drew walks, and he's what my son AJ said. He's like the perfect coach for this kid to have the chance to. He probably. I don't think he's going to hit 400, but he's the one.
You're talking about? Yeah.
Huh? Yeah. He's the one guy that he really good at not getting really, really high and really, really low. He's deadline like on a heart attack.
And you're a believer that on your coaching staff, you better have guys who've played in the big leagues.
I absolutely believe that.
Even if the guy didn't get there, but is a great teacher.
Yes. There's something that you how do you communicate a situation at the big league level? It's different, Frank. It's just different. When you play in front of 40 or 50,000 people, and you play at that level, I mean.
But could you argue all the great managers are guys that either didn't get to the big leagues or just had cups of coffee? Many of them, La Russa, Lasorda, Earl Weaver.
That's a totally different deal, though. I mean, coaching and managing are different roles.
Yeah.
Are different roles, totally different roles.
I wonder how many great managers, how many great players became great managers.
Dusty Baker?
Yeah, good player, yeah. Frank Robinson was a pretty good manager.
Pretty good.
But most of them are guys that
had to scrap, had to really know the game. Here, do you think I believe, well, not every player, but there's players.
Ted Williams was terrible as a manager.
Oh, awful. His expectations of his players was way too high. He thought everybody should hit like him. But anyways, as a manager, when you have to fight and claw every single day just to keep your job. I think there's a level of understanding of baseball that's different from the guy. It's easy for him. You know, a guy like Ken Griffey Jr., you think he'd be a good manager? No, because the game came too easy.
Yeah.
He can't understand a guy not playing at the level he thinks he should be playing at.
Now, Joe Torre is an interesting case because
MVP,
yeah, and then won all those championships. However, I wonder, Joe Torre was going to be a failed manager. You're going to remember him as his bad years with the Mets, his bad years with the Cardinals. He had one good year in Atlanta, but he shows up in New York and he gets all that talent and he wins.
Well, he had talent.
Yeah.
And his job really wasn't even managing the game or the players. It was managing George Steinbrenner.
Yeah, he handled that well.
I mean, seriously, that was his biggest challenge on a daily basis. How do I keep this guy from ruining my ball club? George paid. You got to say that. He went out and got the players. And I think one of the things that really helped Joe Torre was as time went on, George Steinbrenner seemed to be a little more patient than he was back in the 70s with Reggie Jackson.
Yeah, he got a little older and stayed out of it.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. Somebody's saying Mike Matheny was a good player and a bad manager.
I disagree.
First of all, if you have a higher winning percentage than Tony La Russa and Whitey Herzog, you weren't a bad manager.
Exactly.
Now, were you as good as them? Probably not.
I think.
But he went to the playoffs his first 4 years, which was like it's never been done before.
Right. And I think the perception, well, especially from the media side and from the fan side, he was a bad media manager. You know what I'm saying? His communication with the media and with the fans.
It wasn't terrible.
It wasn't terrible. But he didn't trust you guys. You got.
Yeah. And I think he learned that year off. He went to Kansas City, but in the end,
the expectation
handling
Kansas City. Handling Kansas City is different than handling Cardinals.
Yeah, but it's a good thing they got rid of Mike Matheny in Kansas City. They're 27-67. It's a good reason they got rid of him because he was the reason they were
absolutely.
God, they're going to be worse than the A's before it's all said and done.
They are
27-67.
27 wins. Yep.
By the way, the Nationals have a record pretty similar to the Cardinals. And they're 24 and a half games out. That's what happens when you're playing a division with the Braves.
Yeah, and that's my point about rebuilding, Frank. You maybe if you're in the National League East or West, the Cardinals would definitely have to blow the whole thing up.
Yeah.
Right?
So you're thinking as the Cardinal owner, you're not thinking about being the best team in baseball. You're just trying to be the best team in your division.
I think you can blow it up and still end up being the best team in your division next year.
Yeah.
Right?
The Brewers don't scare you.
No.
Yeah.
And Cincinnati, Cincinnati scares me in the sense if they get any kind of pitching, they're going to be scary. They got athletes everywhere. They got some prospects in the minor leagues that they're holding back, too.
And when they've been pretty bad at times, you've had high draft picks to capitalize on. Now, some of it's good trades.
Yeah.
But
they're young and they're talented and exciting. And in that ballpark, Wainwright would really have, even when Wainwright a couple of years ago would have a hard time pitching there, Michaels would have a hard time pitching. They need power arms to have strikeouts because the ball just flies.
What do you think about it, too, here is I'm not sure if you have to touch the offense much because if you have two great players at first and third and then three really good offensive players in Walker, Gorman, and Donovan, which I think they're all going to be really good, that's five good offensive players. That's pretty
It's
good.
really interesting when you look at the last 2 years, how much emphasis and how much value the Cardinals thought they had in their outfield. Now, they can't get anything for their outfield.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest issue is it's going to be hard to trade Goldsmith. I get it. But if you do and put Walker first, now there's a hole in the outfield, which I don't think it can be filled up.
Oh, yeah, there's no way. You're
you know
right.
what I mean? So that's a problem. If they had a guy in AAA or AA that was ready to play in the big leagues, I would, in a second, think about trading Goldsmith.
Well, maybe do you think about this since he won a Gold Glove as a utility player? Maybe if you want three productive bats in the outfield, which you got to have, maybe you just view Brendan Donovan as an outfielder moving forward when he can throw. And right now he can't throw.
Mm-hmm.
And then
he can play left field.
Oh yeah. He can't throw now.
No, about my point. And I don't think his arm is a right field arm, but
So you could live with Donovan, Nootbaar, Walker, and then second base is Gorman, shortstop is Wynn. Oh, you got Edman there too, so you can. Mm-hmm. That offense is okay. You probably don't have to do much to it at all.
no. And I hope DeYoung keeps hitting because he should not be the shortstop next year. Wynn should be the shortstop. Throw him in. Somebody might like him if he gets hot, but
You would think.
and I know you like him. I know you like him, and he's a great guy. He's a really smart guy. But as far as being an everyday shortstop, the bar, he has a certain level. I think Wynn's going to be his bar is much higher.
He's got a chance to be electric. Yeah,
Yes,
he really does.
that's my point.
His ability to steal bases.
Yeah.
So you would think, okay, so if we talk about we're relatively good on the offensive end,
Mm-hmm.
that you could get, when you trade those 3 free agent pitchers, you could find two guys that could be starters next year. Don't you think? With as good as those guys are and as desperate as some teams are, you could find a couple of starting pitchers for next year?
Frank, if these guys are that good, you can't trade them though. That's my point.
Well, as I said
If
before,
you want to save money, yes.
no, as I said before, you try to sign them, up all 3 of them.
Right.
But you're probably not. They're going to tell you, no, I'm not going to sign. And you'll have 2 weeks. You got 2 weeks notice, basically, to the deadline.
It's coming fast.
Yeah.
And it's going to be really interesting to see how the Cardinals handle this. They've never been in this position.
No.
In a really long time. So it's going to be really interesting how they respond.
Because you're adding at the deadline if you're the Cardinals.
Did you see the interview with Zaylock on Channel 2?
I did not.
Okay. The one thing I came away
I saw a
watching,
couple sound bites.
Okay. The one thing, did you see it, Joe?
Yeah, I saw it. Yes, I did.
Tell me if
we have some
tell
sound
me if
bites
my
too.
analysis is off. I felt like he's talking out both sides of his mouth. Like, we're not rebuilding, but we're going to rebuild.
Yes,
You know what I mean?
he did. He said we're going to trade people, but I don't know if they're going to be big names or not.
Right.
Stuff like that, yeah.
And another thing is, when he was asked a question about ex-Cardinals, the 3 All-Stars that started the All-Star game, he would say, well, we made an evaluation, we. And then when he was asked a question about how he's doing, he goes, well, I'm not sleeping well. My wife doesn't think I'm as nice as I am. But you know what? When you're the president of the Cardinals, and again, I always say this, you always can't be right on a player. You're going to make mistakes. Wear it. Just say, you know, I made a wrong evaluation. Or because ultimately, who is it come down to? It's not we, it's I. And that's the one thing I took away. Like, man, I just wish he would just say, I made some decisions that didn't work out. But he always said we.
Huh. Yeah.
Does that make?
Yeah, and you think about it. How brutal,
does the buck stop with him or doesn't it?
Yeah. Well, what do you think is worse for him, seeing this team in last place or turning on the All-Star game and looking at 3 starters that he just gave away for nothing? Both. Yeah.
Yes.
God, if you don't make the Liberatore Rosarina trade and Randy's in your outfield with Jordan Walker, if you have Zach Gallen on your squad instead of Marcell Ozuna for a year, you have a young Zach Gallen.
And that's another guy they didn't do their homework on. You're trying to tell me nobody knew this guy?
That Ozuna was a knucklehead?
You really?
Yeah, they didn't know
This
that.
is a surprise?
Right.
Huh?
Yeah. But he does play every day for the best team in baseball, but
Yeah, he does.
not particularly great.
He doesn't play great or doesn't?
He's not having a great year.
Well, here's the thing. He's the type of player that has got to perform at a really high level. And if he does, your patience is there. If he doesn't play at a high level, your patience is really short. Because then, as much as you don't want the person's personality to come in, if he's not the best teammate or you think he's not doing things correctly, man, that leash gets really short. And I think that's what happened in Atlanta. I think that's what happened when he was with the Marlins, and I think that's what happened when he was with the Cardinals.
Yeah.
I mean, the cover up of what went on here is just amazing. It's it's sort of like the Biden family. What? Come on, Frank. That was a good one.
That was very
good.
good.
That was.
Hey, I had the Sunday night game up for a little bit last night while I'm typing, and Shohei Ohtani hit number 34.
Jeez.
He's hitting 301, and he has RBI wise, he's up to
70? 80?
They don't have it in there.
He had 70 at the break, didn't he?
Check his RBIs real quick. But he's at 34. Babe Ruth didn't do it at the same time. I mean, this would be like if Tom Brady was playing quarterback and was also the best free safety in football too.
Or kicked the most field goals.
Yeah.
Had the right. Leading the league in field goals and touchdowns.
What do you think he'll end up doing?
I think he's going to end up a Dodger. And if you and I are around next year, and we do our first show at some point next year, I want you to write down or tell me right now how much he's going to make per year.
I'm going to just say $50 million.
I'm going to say 52. I don't know why 50. You want to get past 50, and this 52 sounds like a good number.
And that's like on his
Probably 8 years
8
at
years.
52.
So it'll be 400.
He's 20. Is he 30 or
What's his age there?
He has 73 RBIs,
73.
and he's 29.
29?
But I keep hearing the figure $500 million, though. That's the number
Yeah.
that everybody's talking about.
Right.
He's going to get to $500 million.
Right. But whether it's 8 or 10 years, so
Yeah.
it's going to be 50. And if he does get to 50, he's still going to be underpaid as far as on the scheme of on a global scale as far as athletes go.
Yeah.
What he is doing, we're talking about pay, take any athlete who's the best paid athlete in the world, who the soccer player, what's his name, who just got
Messi.
I mean, that's where he is. And I know soccer is a global sport and baseball is not a global sport, but still, if he makes 50, at this point, he's going to be underpaid. Think about it.
He is. I agree.
Yeah. It's crazy.